Hi everybody, we are continuing learning about the circulatory system now. So we've already learnt that the main function of the circulatory system is to pump blood around our body, and the blood contains nutrients and oxygen, which our cells need, and it contains a whole lot of other chemicals as well as carbon dioxide, which is a waste from our cells that needs to be removed from the body. So, as a review, the circulatory system pumps blood, nutrients, oxygen, and carbon dioxide around the body. So here's a diagram of the whole circulatory system and the heart. And in this video, we're going to learn more about the details of the heart and how it actually pumps blood, because it's quite a complex organ that's evolved over millions of years in animals to the heart that we have today in humans. So first of all, you can see here there's two circuits in the circulatory system. We've got the lower circuit down here, which goes to the body cells, and then we've got the upper circuit up here, which goes to the lungs. So essentially, the circulatory system is a double circuit. Circulatory system is a double circuit. And the reason for that is because blood has to be sent to the lungs to get fresh oxygen and to remove carbon dioxide. And then fresh blood that's oxygenated has to be sent to the body cells so they can use the oxygen. So at the lungs, oxygen goes in. And at the body cells, the oxygen goes out into the body cells. And it's the opposite for carbon dioxide. So when the blood reaches the lungs, all that carbon dioxide is removed. And then at the body cells, all the waste carbon dioxide that the cells don't need anymore, CO2, enters the bloodstream ready to be removed back at the lungs again. And so the heart's job is to be the pump that moves the blood all through those different circuits. So let's learn more detail about the heart and how it works. Firstly, the easiest way to remember the parts of a heart is it's made up of 4 chambers. And we can basically think of them as boxes in this diagram here. So the heart consists of 4 chambers, and a box diagram is a really easy way to remember them all. So the top 2 chambers, which are called RA and LA here, they're called the atria. You might hear atrium as well. So atria is the plural and atrium is the singular. If you're talking about one, it's just an atrium. So the top 2 parts of the heart are called the right atrium and the left atrium. So straight away you might be thinking, hang on a minute, the right atrium is on the left and the left atrium is on the right. And that's true. So the problem with the heart is that the way scientists and doctors have labelled it is from the perspective of the animal. So if we have a person here and we're looking at that person, then their left is on the right. So the person's left is on the right when we're looking at a picture of the person. And that's the way we name organs, including the heart as well. So if we're looking at the heart, which is inside that person, then the left side of the heart is on the right, and the right side of the heart is on the left. So you have to reverse all your thinking when you're naming the parts of the heart. So the atria, the atrium, the left and the right, are on the top, and then we have the ventricles at the bottom. We've got the right ventricle and the left ventricle. So they're the four main chambers of the heart, and they contain blood, and they push blood from one area to another. So once you're confident knowing those names, let's have a look at the heart and how it actually pumps, and learn a few more names of the different sections. Alright, firstly, we're going to have a look, well, here's a diagram of the heart actually pumping blood. So you can see, firstly, blood fills up the right atrium and the left atrium at the top, and then the blood pushes down through these valves. So there's a valve here and a valve here, and the valves are between the atrium and the ventricle. And then once the ventricles both fill up with blood, then the muscles around both the ventricles contract and push blood out of the ventricles through these two valves here, 1 and 2. So the atrium contracts, the muscles around the atria, and that's the first pump, and then the ventricle muscles contract, and that's the second pump. And that's why our heartbeats have that classic double beat. And you can hear the double sound when you have a heartbeat. The atrium and then the ventricle. Alright, so let's look at all those details and work out how blood actually travels around the body. So here we've got a more detailed diagram. We've got our right atrium and our right ventricle, and we've got the left ventricle and the left atrium in here. So we also need to be able to name the valves. So these two valves here are the valves that join the atrium and the ventricle, which we looked at in the diagram. Technically, they're called the atrioventricular valves. Because they join the atrium and the ventricles together. And then we have all the different tubes leading off the heart. And these are just arteries and veins, which we've learnt about before. So remember, arteries take blood away from the heart, and veins take blood into the heart. So let's label them using the colours that they are. So when blood first returns back to the heart, it comes in through this vein here, which is called the vena cava. It's the main vein carrying blood back to the heart. Then when blood leaves that left side, leaves the right side of the heart, we've got this artery here, which is taking blood to the lungs. And lungs, the word for lungs is pulmonary. So this is the pulmonary artery. Then when blood comes back from the lungs, it's freshly oxygenated, so it's bright red. And that comes in through the pulmonary veins, which are these two tubes here. And then the blood goes from the left atrium down to the left ventricle, and then that fresh blood gets pumped out of the main artery in the heart, which is called the aorta. This carries all the fresh blood to all the different parts of our body. It branches off into smaller arteries when it joins the rest of the circulatory system. So they're the four tubes leading in and out of the heart. So let's follow the process using this diagram for how the blood actually pumps around the body. So the first step, let's start with blood leaving the left ventricle through the aorta. So that's happening here. All that fresh blood goes to all the different cells in the body, and the oxygen gets removed in those body cells. So that's the second step. So the blood becomes deoxygenated, we say. and that's why it looks blue when it comes back. So then all that deoxygenated blood returns through the veins all the way back to the vena cava and then in through to the right atrium. So it comes down into the right atrium through here. Then the atrium contracts and pushes the blood through that valve down into the right ventricle. So that's step 4 over here. And then the right ventricle needs to send the blood over to the lungs to be oxygenated again. So the ventricle contracts, and step 5 is pushing that deoxygenated blood out of the pulmonary artery to the lungs. And you can see it splits to go to the left and the right lung in the 2 different arteries. Then over at the lungs, the blood becomes oxygenated. And then that freshly oxygenated blood returns to the heart and enters the top of the right atrium through the pulmonary veins. So we're here. And then the left atrium contracts, pushes the blood down to the left ventricle, which is here at step 8. And then the left ventricle contracts at the same time as the other ventricle and pushes all that blood back out through the aorta, and we're back to the beginning again. So the heart is a pretty complex organ, but its main job is to pump the blood to the lungs to be oxygenated and then around the body so that all our tissues have enough oxygen and nutrients to survive.